Alright, we have reached the semifinals in Mallorca, one of the small grass court tournaments the week before Wimbledon. Of course, that's why we have the semifinals on Friday instead of Saturday, where we will have the final, because when we have these tournaments that are played right before a Grand Slam, they shift the matches back like that one day, because the Grand Slam officially starts it often officially starts on Sunday, so they don't want to have the final of the tournament on the same day. So here they will have the final on Saturday, although I don't know when the first main draw matches for Wimbledon will start on Monday, but I guess they would rather have them have a day of rest instead of, in case any of these players unfortunately are scheduled to play on the first day of Wimbledon. That would be unfortunate for them to have to play a final and then play their first match at Wimbledon immediately after that. So we'll have the semifinals today. Again, we'll start in a couple of hours. And these are not too easy semifinals to predict. It is never easy when you have players that have not achieved much in their career, at least in terms of winning titles and reaching finals. So the only player of these four players left in Mallorca who has won a title before is Nuno Borges. I believe he has won one title, and that was on clay in 2024 in Portugal, in Sweden, when he defeated the greatest clay court player of all time, Rafael Nadal, in straight sets in that final of the Bastad Open. And I believe that is his only title. And he became the only man after the Big Four, of course, Djokovic, or the other members of the Big Four, I should say, Djokovic, Federer, and Andy Murray, as well as Horacio Zeballos, to defeat Rafael Nadal in a clay court final. So he has that on his record. That is probably more impressive than any of the other achievements that the other players left in this tournament have. The other players, as a matter of fact, have never won a title in their career. And in fact, Ethan Quinn, who is Borges' opponent in the semifinal, has never reached an ATP semifinal in his career up until this tournament. Then in the other semifinal, of course, we have Alejandro Davidovich Fokina, who is known as one of the best players who has never won a single ATP title because he is known for choking. And he is the second seed of this tournament, the only seeded player remaining, but even he has still never won a title in his career because he chokes. And his opponent in the semifinal is Fabian Marochan, who has never won a title and has actually never reached an ATP final in his career. So we don't have players who have achieved very much in this tournament, which, as is to be expected, is a small tournament right before Wimbledon. The top players usually don't play. But before I predict these matches, which will begin soon, I must say a little bit about the finals that took place last Sunday. So in Queen's Club, the result was exactly like I predicted. Francisco Cerundolo defeated Tommy Paul in 3 sets to win his first 500 ATP title. And he is now 6-2 in the head-to-head against Tommy Paul. So Cerundolo is owning Tommy Paul. Then in the other semifinal, it was a surprising result, not like I predicted. I don't think most people predicted. But Tiafoe ended up defeating Taylor Fritz in straight sets. And I don't think most people predicted this because Fritz has a much better resume on grass. Wimbledon semifinal, 4 or 5 grass court titles. And perhaps even more importantly, he was 7-1 against Tiafoe. And now he is 7-2. Tiafoe got his first win against Taylor Fritz in 10 years. So I don't think most people expected this, and especially not in straight sets the way that it did. It was a pretty dominant performance from Frances Tiafoe. So Fritz is a fraud. Um, that's all there needs to be said about that. But Fritz, he will be going into Wimbledon with some more confidence. Although Fritz, he has now lost two grass court finals in a row on back-to-back weeks against other American players. He lost in Stuttgart to Ben Shelton, and now he's lost in Halle to Francis Tiafoe. So he's lost to his compatriots in back-to-back weeks in finals. But he can still hold his head up high for reaching two back-to-back grass court finals. Is of course a very good result, even if he lost both of them. But especially for him, it's a very good thing to do, especially since he didn't really do much at all since the beginning of the year. So he's definitely found some form going into Wimbledon, and he will be one of the top favorites for Wimbledon. I would put him as the third favorite behind Sinner and Djokovic. I would definitely put him ahead of Zverev, even though the odds makers have Zverev ahead of Fritz. I would say Fritz is probably an even bigger favorite, at least if you consider. Well, it's difficult for me because now that Zverev has won a Grand Slam, he has shown some of his capabilities. So, in that sense, if you look at it like that, then you could say, okay, maybe he has shown that he can actually win these big titles. So, you should put him higher because of that. So, maybe you could say that. But if you look at, strictly speaking, their grass court resumes, Fritz should definitely be higher than Zverev. And Fritz should definitely be, because Zverev has never reached quarterfinals at Wimbledon. Fritz has reached the semifinals last year. And Fritz has also won 4 or 5 grass court titles in his career. Zverev has never won a single grass court title. So Fritz is definitely one of the favorites for Wimbledon, because there's not many players who can say that they have won 4 or 5 grass court titles. Fritz, I believe he has more grass court titles than Sinner and Alcaraz. Of course, he's not a better grass court player than Sinner and Alcaraz because they have won Wimbledon. But it is still a good achievement and a good thing to be able to say that you have more grass court titles than basically everyone else on the tour. I don't know anyone who has more grass court titles than Taylor Fritz, except for Novak Djokovic, of course, because he won 7 Wimbledon titles. Apart from that, I don't think anybody has more grass court titles than Taylor Fritz. So Taylor Fritz is definitely someone who can be considered as one of the favorites for Wimbledon. 5 grass court titles. I believe Alcaraz has probably 4, or maybe he has 5. Let's see. He has 4 titles on grass, and I believe Sinner has only 1, or maybe 1 or 2. I think 2. I think he won Halle 2 years ago, and then he won Wimbledon last year. So yeah, he has 2 titles on grass. So Fritz has more titles on grass than Sinner and Alcaraz. Again, of course, they're small titles, but that are still a good stat to have, more titles on the surface than those 2. So, with that being said, let's get into. But Fritz also has a very tough first round at Wimbledon. He has Jack Draper in the first round. Of course, Jack Draper, who's always injured, but it looks like just in the nick of time for Wimbledon, he is finally finding some form again. He just reached the semifinal at the other tournament that's going on in Eastbourne. So there will not be an easy match for Fritz with the home crowd as well for Draper. But Fritz can definitely come through. I mean, last year he had a super tough first few rounds, and he managed to come through that by being more clutch, and he eventually reached the semifinals and played a tough match against Carlos Alcaraz. So Fritz, last year he had to come from 2 sets down against Giovanni Mpecci Pericard, a huge server who no one wants to face on grass. I believe Fritz also saved a match point there. Then in the second round he had to play a 5-set match against Gabriel Diallo, another big server, tall, big guy from Canada. You wouldn't want to face him on grass either. Then he had to play Fokina. Fokina, who can be difficult, won 4 sets. Then he had some luck finally, and Thompson in the 4th round, who retired after a set and a half. Apart from that, Khachanov in the quarterfinals, not that easy, and then he won in 4 sets, and then he played Alcaraz in the semifinals, which was a match that could have easily gone to 5 sets, and then you never know what happened, although Alcaraz wins basically every match that goes to 5 sets. So, will not be easy for Fritz to have Draper, but he can also have some hope that Draper will maybe will be a little tired, since he is having a deep run at the moment in Eastbourne, and he can win the title, or he can lose in the final. These things are possible, so maybe Draper will be tired by the time he gets to Wimbledon. And the more matches Draper plays, of course, the more likely it is for his body to break down, which we have seen many times. This year already resulted in him not playing in the French Open or Rome. He has actually not played since Barcelona. And he didn't even play the Australian Open this year either. He came back in Dubai, so he has not played a Grand Slam this year because he was always injured. So maybe Draper will get injured again when facing Fritz or before facing Fritz. So Fritz is definitely the favorite in that match, of course, but you never know. Draper is still not somebody that you want to see, at least when he's healthy, in your draw. So now we will predict the Mallorca semifinals. And from the top half of the draw, we have the Portuguese player Nuno Borges taking on the American Ethan Quinn, another American in these grass court semifinals, this time a lesser known one than Shelton, Fritz, and Tiafoe, but still another good result for American players. And Nuno Borges, he just took out the top seed of the tournament, Luciano Darderi. Not surprising there, because Darderi is a clay court specialist. And this is not an super easy match to predict, because both of these players have not been in many semifinals at all. I don't know if Borges has maybe been in one semifinal in the past year, if that many. And Ethan Quinn has never been in a semifinal in his career. They have also never faced each other in their careers, so there's not much to go off of here. But I'm going to say that Borges wins this one in straight sets, because I think he's just playing better at the moment, and he does have more experience at this level, having won a title here. This is not his first semifinal. It is the first semifinal of Quinn's career, and Borges also has won a title, like I just said. So I think that experience will give him the edge. I think he will win this match in straight sets. Then we have the semifinal from the bottom half of the draw. We have Alejandro Davidovich Fokina taking on Fabian Marozsan, the Hungarian, who has, again, never reached an ATP final in his career. This match, I believe, is maybe slightly less difficult to predict. It's going on semifinal data. Marozsan, of course, he has that on his record that he has never won a semifinal in his career. However, Davidovich, even though he has never won an ATP final, he has won semifinals before in his career. And in the past year, if we look at the data, he hasn't lost many semifinals in the past year. He has been in 3 in addition to this one, and he has only lost 1 of them. Compare that with Marozsan. He He has been in, I think, 2 or 3 semifinals in the past year, in addition to this one. In the past year, he reached 2 semifinals, lost both of them. So because of that, I will go with Fokina to win this in 3 sets, because I think that Marsan can still be tricky. And Fokina, you never know with him. Even though he has won both of his matches in straight sets, you never know. He can always get nervous and start to play badly. But I think he will win this match in 3 sets. He has reached finals before. He just needs to get over that final hurdle. I think we will have an Iberian Peninsula final between the 2nd seed Alejandro Davidovich Fokina and the Portuguese Nuno Borges. And this is an absolutely golden opportunity for Fokina to win his first title of his career. He can win the title. He will not have to face a seeded player in the entire tournament, even though it is a small tournament still. The average rank of his opponents will probably be like 50 to 80 or something like that. He will not get a much better opportunity than this. So let's see if he can reach that final first and then win his first title of his career, as many people are waiting for him to do. But it will not be easy. It will not be easy. Even though there are no seeded players left, it doesn't really matter for these small tournaments. He still has to face a tricky opponent in Marsan, and then also a difficult opponent in Borges, who has won a title, something he has never done. So let's see if he will get it done or if he will choke again. Hopefully he doesn't choke from having championship points again, like he has done, I believe, multiple times in his career. Twice in 2025, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see what happens. But he will not get a much better chance than this, that's for sure. But once again, I believe that Borges defeats Quinn in straight sets, and Davidovich Fokina defeats Marsan in 3 sets, and we will have a final between Davidovich Fokina and Borges.